Before I begin to tell you about my path during the dynamic leadership, I want to go back 17 years ago when I first joined Toastmasters. And the first time I did table topics, the table topics master gave us a prompt. They said, I'm going to tell you a city, and you tell me whether you think it's non-fictional or fictional and why. I was new to Toastmasters in general, and this table topics threw me for a loop. When the Toastmaster said Timbuktu, the first thing that went through my mind was this song. So that song is actually played in Tiny Toons. I hear Timbuktu, I think Istanbul, Constantinople. I have no idea if it's a real thing or not. Now I know that in its golden age, it was a center for culture and learning. Very appropriate that this happened to be the city that I got for my first table topics. People were determined to reach this city in Mali because of its ludicrous riches, but many did not make it. Therefore, the idiom from here to Timbuktu is essentially the journey that we don't really want to do, but could be worth it. And that is where I come to tell you about my journey in the dynamic leadership path. I'm going to start with a quote from an ancient Chinese philosopher, Lao Tzu. It said, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." About 2.5 years ago, I had a mentor, and it was more along the lines of we had a new organization. I wanted to learn about that organization, but we got onto other things such as how do you prepare for a presentation at work? And he, of course, was an area director for Toastmasters. And he said, you should join Toastmasters. 11 years later, why didn't I think of that? The first time I left Toastmasters was because I switched jobs. And it just wasn't convenient because that Toastmaster club was associated to my company. In this instance, I wasn't all that thrilled about joining the company meeting or the company Toastmaster club because it was New Jersey. So it was always during the daytime, didn't really work out for me, conflicted with my meetings. But I was lucky enough to run into Public Speaking Northwest. Last time I did Toastmasters, it was actually the old educational program, which included Confident Communicator and Leadership Pathways. And so they had two different pathways. I was really good on leadership, communication, not so much. The great thing about pathways is it forced you to do the communication part. When I started this second round of Toastmasters, I'll tell you that first icebreaker was the same as the icebreaker 15 years prior. I was nervous. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I didn't sleep well a couple days beforehand. I practiced with my mom. I practiced with my husband. I practiced with my kids. And I made Nancy listen to it at least once before I practiced with the club. The thing is that energy that I had at Toastmasters was the same energy I had at work. I was nervous. I didn't want to present at work. I didn't know how to handle myself. And the thing about it is that being a Toastmasters is like riding a bike. We're a little bit shaky when we first get on, but the more you do it and the more you practice, the easier it is. And the easier it is to maintain that balance. I'll tell you, that's for prepared speaking, but for impromptu speaking, how many of us were raised to be seen and not heard? Speak when spoken to. I was the youngest of 5, and I'll tell you, I actually have a twin brother who is loud enough for the both of us. So I was definitely one of those people who didn't speak up often. They don't have general education class that say, speak up, speak out, share your voice. I think the great thing about Toastmasters is that's exactly what we come here to do. Starting my dynamic leadership path, I'll tell you, after the 11-year hiatus was pretty easy. I've done speeches from raising chickens to building a second brain, gardening in the Pacific Northwest and remodeling my kitchen, talking about Clifton strengths and how I led a Girl Scout troop. The thing about the dynamic leadership pathway is that it gives me the opportunity to toot my own horn. I've always understand the preference for certain communication and leadership types, but refreshing myself and naming those different types has helped me to remind me that I need perspective of the other types that other people have. I've also had to do project management speech and change management speech. Those were easy because that's exactly what I do at work. But validating that process has really helped force me to do an internal lesson learned. Not only that, I was already committed to leading in a volunteer organization and leading at work. Like Toastmasters forced me to get feedback from other people. Usually I'd wait until performance reviews and I'd only hear from my boss unless we had to do some sort of 360 where they would get peers and other people. But as part of some of the projects at the later part of your path, you have to get feedback from other people. And people are more than willing to provide feedback, but for some reason we don't ever ask for it. I think asking for that feedback has really helped me to share in my passions and make them hold deeper meaning to myself. At work, I've grown in confidence and courage to step out of my comfort zone. I run a lot of meetings, but when I go to other meetings, I'm not one of those people that speak up unless called upon. The thing is I noticed after I joined, I did speak up. I did come off mute. I did actually make sure that my voice was heard. I also volunteered to do knowledge sharing sessions with our company. One example is Smartsheet. So I believe I did a speech on Smartsheet here, but I'll tell you that I signed up as a Smartsheet mobilizer. And what that means is they will give you swag so that you will host a lunch and learn at your company. And so I have this mug that says, "There is no try, only can do." I love that mug. It's like the same when you have a halls and it says, "You can do this." I love those inspirational quotes that just get you going. And I loved sharing my knowledge about Smartsheets with the rest of the company. The fact that I had more than 30 people show up on something that was kind of not required was amazing to me. Another example that I had at work was I had to present to the leadership team to ask them for $250,000. That's kind of a lot of money, but it was also about Smartsheets. And if anybody knows, they work with me the last 6 years, I am the biggest proponent of Smartsheet. I went in there, I told them exactly why we needed to keep it, exactly why they needed to give me $250,000, and I gave our site leader a cup. And I'll tell you, everybody on the leadership team said that it was a very well put together presentation. And the project manager who had to present after me was he told me on multiple occasions that he wished he had gone first so that he didn't have to follow me. Another way that Toastmasters has helped me outside of Toastmasters and outside of work is just at home. In public settings, even with our family, I've practiced some of these speeches, example, beekeeping. When we went to go visit our family down in Southern California, and I was telling them all these little tidbits about what I learned about beekeeping, they were like, "Does everyone in Washington speak like that?" And I was like, "No, it's just Toastmasters has provided me a platform to dig deeper on the topics that I am knowledgeable about. And being able to communicate them to you allows me to communicate them to everybody else in all the other situations that I might be in." Another example that I have of where outside of Toastmasters it's really been helpful is understanding who I'm talking to. I've mentioned before, anytime you're talking to anyone else, it's public speaking, whether it be one other person or 100 other people. Well, with 3 little kids, we have to host birthday parties, and we have to host birthday parties with kids we don't necessarily know yet because they're just entering into elementary school. One of the birthday parties for my daughter, I remember asking her, "Can you tell me a little fun fact about each of these kids?" Because for the parents, I have no relation with them except for the fact that their kid and my kid get along. So I asked them, "What can I say about this person?" As I started to meet them and go around, talk to people, I'll tell them, "Oh, did you know that your kid is the fastest in the class? Did you know that your kid is so helpful?" Pretty soon it got around that I had fun facts about everybody's kids. I had the parents coming to me asking me, "So I heard you had something fun about my kid. What can you tell me?" And so that was where it validated that when you prepare in advance, even for little situations like that, it's easy to have that communication really go. Now, I still torture my kids. If they want me to watch them in the shower, then I will practice my Toastmaster speeches on them. But I like the fact that everything I've done in the dynamic leadership path has really helped contribute to my success outside of Toastmasters. Now, there's this quote that I have from an ancient Greek playwright, which I won't say the name because I think I said the F word in practice. But it says, "Look and you will find it. What is unsought will go undetected." In the dynamic leadership path, At Public Speaking Northwest, I have sought to develop my communication and leadership skills and have found a supporting and positive learning environment that has led to a greater self-confidence and personal growth. This is our club mission. I've taken that challenging journey not to Timbuktu, but to completing my first path and pathways. And if there's one thing that I hope I have proven to you today, is that Toastmasters is where leaders are made.